All right, my friends, we've made it to my grandpa's house. I went ahead, took a nap, got a shower, and now my grandpa and I are gonna go out and do a vlog together. Let's go out on the porch and say hello to him. Well, looks like you knew I was coming. Look at your shirt. Weren't you sick of me, Papa? I feel like I was just here not too long ago, a couple weeks ago.
Well, you were.
You agreed to go out and do a vlog with me today. We're gonna go do a little bit on Annie Oakley. Did you know Annie Oakley?
Just a little bit before my time.
Well, thanks for going out with me. I've never been to one of the cities we're going to. We're going to North Star. I don't know that one, but I do know Greenville, so it'd be nice to go back to Greenville and maybe have a maid right while we're there.
That's right. I'll go with that.
Papa, we just drove by a house and you told me a story. Tell everybody the story that you just told me.
A neighbor lady who was about 75 years old was coming east in her Cadillac, and she saw this house with a big bay window, and someone was standing in the window, and she got so excited that she came to our house and wanted to get my wife, Jordan's grandma, to go with her out and look at this guy standing in the window. And when she asked her what she was doing, said the old man was standing, no clothes on.
So he was just standing there in a major intersection out on the highway, yep, in his window naked for everybody to see when they drove past.
And Jordan's grandma said, I don't want to see that, so she wouldn't go with her.
She could have seen that at home.
That's where Russell Warner used to live.
You know everybody out in these parts.
And his daughter still lives in this part. Yeah, all down there was my friend came from there when I went to school.
We're entering Dark County.
Bradford was the railroad capital of this area.
That's where we're at now, Bradford. When I was younger, we used to come here for Halloween because they used to do something called the Pumpkin Show.
Yes. Where
they'd shut down the streets and people would walk up and down the streets throwing confetti in each other's faces. I mean, as hard as you could, too.
See that you still got a
railroad car over there. Oh, and look at the mural over there. Got a railroad mural. We've made it to North Star. Well, welcome to North Star. Near the birthplace and early home of Annie Oakley, Little Sure Shot. Born 1860. Don't worry, we're actually gonna go out to where she was born and where the early home was. I'm gonna take you there right after this, but it's kind of interesting that it says Little Sure Shot because I was gonna mention that was her nickname given to her by Chief Sitting Bull. So you'd think a woman being known as one of the greatest shots in history would be a tomboy. She's always been painted as kind of a tomboy, but she really wasn't. She was very dainty. She loved lace and fine things and wore dresses, and I think in a weird way they've painted kind of an off picture of her. She's a very interesting person. We're gonna go out to where she was born now. Now, even though Annie Oakley made her living as part of a vaudeville act with her husband Frank Butler, doing shooting demonstrations, and then went into work for the Buffalo Bill show, even though she made her living doing all that, she volunteered during World War I to help train a regiment of women to be able to be excellent marksmen, and the military turned her down. So here we are out in the middle of God's country, out in the middle of some of the most beautiful farmland you could probably ever imagine. And right out here, off to the side of the road, is a little memorial here stating that this was the birthplace of Annie Oakley, or her real name, Phoebe Moses. Look at that, they have a gun up here. Try and get over here close enough to read this without stepping on the beautiful flowers here, but it says, Annie Oakley's birthplace. World famous sharpshooter Annie Oakley was born Phoebe Ann Moses, August 13th, 1860 in a log cabin, 1,028 feet due east of here on land that had been in the Swallow family line for 127 years at the time this memorial was dedicated in July 1981. Hey, that's when I was born, by the Annie Oakley Committee. Very nice. And then look at this. Now, if you don't know much about Annie Oakley, she was born in 1860, and she was born to Quakers, and her father passed away in 1866. So Annie, as she grew up when she was very young, took his rifle and started learning how to use his rifle, and then would go out and hunt game, hunt food for the family. The family didn't have a lot, so this was really important, and she became such a great shot that she ended up supplying meat for local restaurants as far as Cincinnati and even further. Now, the reason that they would hire her is because she was known for being such a good shot that she wouldn't ruin the meat with the bullet when she took the shot. And eventually, she became so well known in the area by the people that bought meat off of her that one of them in Cincinnati encouraged her to enter a sharpshooting contest. And she did enter that sharpshooting contest. She took on a man named Frank, who was the best sharpshooter of the time, and she actually won. And that was a big deal because back then women did not have competitions with men, and eventually her and Frank a year later would get married.
It was a rifle barrel up there, come from an old 410 shotgun, but the stock is just a wood stock.
Yeah. Now, though her name was actually Phoebe and her mom would call her Phoebe, her sisters would call her Annie, and so professionally she became known that way as Annie Oakley. Now, you saw where Annie was born. The family moved away from there, and the fields that used to be beyond here where Annie honed her craft of shooting game. And so they have another memorial right here stating that this was Annie Oakley's childhood home. And let's read. It says, Annie Oakley, America's little sure shot, was born in northeastern Darke County, Ohio, and spent her childhood days in the house on this site. At that time, the dense virgin forest surrounded her home, and Annie shot and trapped wild game to help pay the debt on the property. By persistent practice, she became an expert shot and spent several years with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, traveling extensively in America and Europe, which later countries she exhibited before crowned heads and received a very enthusiastic reception. Eventually, she became universally recognized as the champion lady rifle shot of the world, and got a record for fancy and rapid shooting that may never be excelled by any woman. Interesting. So in the fields just beyond there. Alright, we're heading out of North Star, and we're going to head off to the final burial place of Annie Oakley and Frank Butler. So Annie and Frank are actually buried here in a town called Brock. Well, we've made it over to Brock Cemetery, and as you can see, we're very close to Annie Oakley's grave. That looks like my grandpa's already found it. They kind of help you with gigantic signs all over the place. Well, here it is. You can see that right here they have a memorial plaque that said Annie Oakley, Phoebe Ann Moses, also known as Annie Oakley, was born 6 miles northeast of here, which we've been to now, in what was then Woodland, later renamed Willowdell. Born in 1860, she was the 6th daughter born to Jacob and Susan Mosey. After the death of her father, she engaged in shooting wild game to feed the Mosey family. This child prodigy shooter shot match after match until she won a life-changing match in 1881 with champion shooter Frank Butler. In 1882, Phoebe Ann married Butler in Windsor, Ontario. There she is. here on the other side, you can see it says she chose Annie Oakley as her professional name and went on to dazzle audiences in the Midwest with her phenomenal accuracy. Sioux Chief Sitting Bull was so moved at seeing her amazing skill that in 1884 he adopted her as his daughter, naming her Little Sure Shot. After joining Buffalo Bill's Wild West in 1885, Annie became the star who thrilled audiences, including royalty and nobility across England and Europe. Retiring from the Wild West in 1901, Annie shot mostly for fun and charity events, donating funds to orphanages and disadvantaged widows. In ill health for several months, Annie died in Greenville at the age of 66. Now I couldn't quite understand, as I read, I couldn't quite understand how her family name went from Mosey to Moses, but it did. And here you can see not only Annie's grave, 1926. Look at all the things people have left for her. It's funny, when we were out there and I was showing you the sign and everything for where she learned to shoot out in those woods and everything, my grandpa said, we ought to go out there looking for shells. So, right beside her is her husband, Frankie Butler, the man that she beat in that sharpshooting contest. Isn't that crazy? They went on to do performances together known as, it was either Butler and Oakley or Oakley and Butler. And they did that for over a decade and then joined Buffalo Bill's show for 17 years. Now what's interesting is they were involved in a train accident and it actually hurt Annie, her spine quite a bit. She had to have like 5 surgeries and it never affected her shooting abilities. So some of the things she was known for during those Wild West shows is that she would shoot an egg in midair and cook the egg. They said she would have an assistant flip a dime and she could shoot the dime in midair. She had a trick where they would put like a poker card sideways so that it was like this, like the thin side, and she would not only shoot through that, but before it hit the ground, she would shoot 5 other holes in the card. And then they said eventually her and Frank got a dog named Dave, and that became their best friend, and they made Dave part of the act, where Dave would get up on a stool and balance an apple on his head, and then Annie would blow the apple off. How crazy is that? Yeah, what an interesting life. Traveled all over the world, performing, never had any of the mishaps you would think. There was never like any kind of disastrous outcomes to anything, and she had a real knack, a real charm about how she did this. People loved to watch her. Then sadly, when their health started failing, that's when they moved back here to the Greenville area, and I'm gonna take you over to where she unfortunately passed away. Now, one of the things that I had read online was that they said that there's a theory that when Annie died, she was cremated. And you'll see that Frank also died in 1926. They were married for 50 years, as I understand, or close to. And apparently when she died, Frank just decided to stop eating. And 18 days later, he passed away and joined her. But what they speculate, or what's said online that's a legend, is that Annie's ashes were put in Frank's casket with Frank and buried with Frank. So we'll head over and take a look at where she passed away. And in Greenville, where that's located, they also have a statue to Annie that we'll go and take a look at. And if you wonder where I got my love of cemeteries, from that guy. When I was a kid, he used to take me to every local cemetery and point out all of our family members and everything, so he's out wandering the cemetery now while I'm here. And you really have to give Frank Butler a lot of credit if you think about it. He was the #1 marksman of that day until he met Annie, which a lot of people, that would make them rivals. You would think that Frank would hate her. And no, a year later they were married. And as I said, they did a vaudeville performing act together but once they joined Buffalo Bill and Annie became the top draw, he quit performing and became her manager and her assistant. He saw that she was special and that she was something else, and decided to step away from his career to make hers. And then, as I said, when she died, he was so heartbroken that he quit eating and joined her 18 days later.
I wonder what the original headstones look like, because the headstones have been replaced with new ones.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're right. Those are definitely very new. Someone did some barn art out here. They like to do that quite often. You got a whole big barn, you can put something on there for people driving by. Why not Annie Oakley? Aim at the high mark and you'll hit it. Very cool. All right, we have made it to Greenville and we are almost to the house. So here we are, what at the time was known as the Zemmer Broderick rooming house on the second floor. Annie Oakley passed away. Apparently she knew this was coming. She had died of anemia. They believe that it was caused by the lead from all those years of shooting and everything. And she knew this was coming. She was very ill and actually made her own arrangements with the funeral director here in town. And they said that really the only way that they thought she could be saved was through a blood transfusion, and she refused to do it. So she planned her own demise, and when they knew that it was coming, her and Frank were upstairs. They dressed her in an orchid outfit, and she quietly passed away. Now what's interesting is, about a year or maybe 2 years ago, they put a little plaque here. So let's go take a look at it. You can see right up here on the front step, in 1926, it memorializes her passing. Even though Annie was a world-renowned and world-famous celebrity, she didn't want a lot of fuss when she passed away, so they had a very brief and private ceremony for just her very few friends and family. Now our last stop for Annie Oakley is going to be the Annie Oakley Park over here, and then my poor grandpa is going to force me to take him to get some lunch. So right up here at one of the big intersections here in town in Greenville is Annie Oakley Park right there with a wonderful statue of her, so let's go take a look at it. So here we have another historical marker that says, Little Sure Shot Annie Oakley, one of America's best known sports shooters and entertainers of the late 1800s. Annie Oakley was born Phoebe Ann Mosey, north of Versailles. Whoops, thought I was in France there for a second. In Darke County in 1860. She achieved local fame for her shooting ability as a hunter while still in her teens. In fact, I forgot to mention, she paid off her mother's mortgage with her shooting. By 1885, Oakley was a star performer in Buffalo Bill's Wild West. With husband and manager Frank Butler, she refined his shooting act, an image that appealed to the late 19th century notions of a romanticized but vanishing West. Throughout her 30-year performing career, Oakley provided honest entertainment in a deception-prone industry while demonstrating widening opportunities for women. She retained her Ohio ties throughout her life and is interred at Brock Cemetery 11 miles north of Greenville, which we already went to. So let's go see her statue, which is right here. Now they do have a museum here in town called the Garst Museum that I believe has a couple of her guns, but it's not open because of the pandemic right now. So here's our statue to Annie Oakley. See if we can't get a little bit closer and you can see how good of a job they did up here on her face. There it says Little Sure Shot, Annie Oakley. So they have a little gazebo over here that says that the park was dedicated in 1990. And then over here, they have a little bit about the park and a pretty good picture of her shooting. Let's take a look at that. You can see it says, aim at a high mark and you'll hit it. No, not the first time nor the second time and maybe not the third, but keep on aiming and keep on shooting, for only practice will make you perfect. Finally, you'll hit the bullseye of success. All right, now there's a pretty famous restaurant here that my grandpa and I like to go to called Made Right. They've kind of created their own sandwich, and we're hoping they're open today because my grandpa is starving, and I promised if he came along for this that I'd take him to Made Right. So let's go see if Made Right's open and have one. So the last time I had a Made Right was when I came this direction to Indiana to make my vlogs on James Dean and Fairmount. So this has a lot of great memories for me. Well, I vlogged the inside of this place, so if you want to see the inside, you'll have to go look up Made Right on my channel, but right now it's only available for drive-through. It says closed inside, so we're going to do the drive-through order. These are loose meat sandwiches, kind of like if you watch Roseanne, what they were selling when she had her diner. That's kind of what these are. They're great. Here they've got the menu out here on the side of the wall. So we were even thinking right here where you wait for your food for them to bring it out, we were thinking we could go to that picnic area at first, and then we got down here and saw that it was closed, so bummer. Well, we ended up coming back to downtown Greenville, and they have a few picnic benches on the sidewalk here, so we're just gonna eat here, but I wanted to show you something they have here in town that I really love. I grew up seeing a lot of these fire escapes on the outside of the buildings, but what I love about Greenville is they don't all have them that look like that. They have enclosed ones that look really classy to me, like this one. See that? I love that. Now let's eat. All right, he got the plain ones and I got 2 with cheese. Let's dig in. So if you forget what the Made Right is, that's the Made Right. That is so good. I think what I read up on at one point was that they marinate it in beer, something like that, the meat. I think he's enjoying it. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this vlog today. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with my grandpa and I and learning about Annie Oakley's life and her, well, where she got started. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time. Thank you, David Brose, Wanda Ross, and Brandy Chapman for becoming my newest Patreons, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great night. And goodbye.